Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. I died 4 times during a heart attack on February 8, 2011 and experienced a severe near-death experience. I reluctantly agreed to a cardiologist consultation after having evident red flag signs of a cardiac condition. I had one set for 3 weeks out, but I blacked out after standing up from sitting on the bed the night before. My now deceased wife worked for a cardiologist who was also our neighbor, and when she told him about my problem that morning, he recommended I come in that day for testing. As a typical hard-headed man, I didn't want to go and attempted not to. I had a multi-day business trip planned that started the next day, and I didn't have time for a doctor's appointment. I had work to do. His office contacted and asked me to come in as soon as possible. I continued doing things until the doctor called and requested that I come in right away. I drove 15 kilometers, irritated. There was no time for this, I kept thinking. Making calls along the way simply exasperated my annoyance. I'm initially given an echo test inside the office, then moved on to the treadmill for a stress test. It was there that the heart attack occurred. I began to labor shortly after the treadmill begins to run. This was not correct. I'd done this exam before with no problems. As the incline begins and the speed increases, it becomes more difficult. I'm breathing hard, my mind is spinning, and I feel like I'm going through deep mud and sinking quickly. The technician performing the test stated that he needed to raise the heart rate to 135 and hold it there for a few seconds to get an accurate readout. I don't want to do this again, so I keep pushing, but everything suddenly went dark. I awoke on a table, surrounded by nurses and my doctor, who all seemed to be on high alert, and I was hearing things like, "His blood pressure is 60/40 and decreasing. We're losing him rapidly. Put some nitro under his tongue, and when that dissolves, put some more in there. Start the IV and squeeze the back to get it in quickly. I'm contacting the operation room to prepare it." What the hell is going on? I wonder. I become more conscious of the people around me. Not only those busily working, but also those standing in the doorway with surprised expressions. I have a strong sensation I'm dying and won't make it, but the doctor claims I grabbed his arm and said, "Hey, I don't have time for this. I have a trip planned for tomorrow." His response was to inform me that I was not going any place other than the hospital. I'm tight, fighting, and terrified. I want to conquer death before it gets to me. I began begging God, please let me live, and it hit me during that prayer that this is completely out of my hands. As a result, my prayer shifted, and I informed God that if it was time for me to come home, I was ready. At that point, I was completely comfortable. All dread had left me, and it was a significant turning point. The doctor stated that he was aware that I had prayed and that God had replied, allowing me to rest in his efforts to be effective. I'm loaded into a wheelchair, IV attached, and pushed across the street to the hospital by someone with quick feet. It's like a scene from a movie. Someone is at every door, making sure it's open so we don't have to slow down. It was critical to get to the surgery room on time. I'm getting ready to go to the operating room for a cardiac cath operation. During the preparation, a nurse informed me that I was in the midst of a severe heart attack. This allowed some fear to return. "You won't feel anything, but you may watch the process on the screen above you," they stated. I'm in a bright, sterile room, and I'm suddenly alone and terrified. "We are now started," the doctor says. I'm going out. I'm in a dark tunnel. Everything is swirling around me, and I see some bright flashes. I'm dead and not seeing white lights. I must be heading to hell, is my first thought. Suddenly, I regain consciousness. People are walking away from me, and I'm puzzled because I can't remember if I was supposed to be awake or asleep during the surgery. I was about to call out and inquire, and then I'm gone. The tunnel is brighter this time, still dark and whirling, but more light flashes and they're getting brighter. I progress and I'm ready to exit the tunnel where I can see a very bright blue sky, and I'm back in my body. Again, people are walking away from me. I didn't realize they were using the defibrillator on me until afterwards. The terror has passed, but the bewilderment has not. I exited from the tunnel for the third time and stood on a massive rock cliff overlooking a most beautiful heavenly mountain river. The air is crisp and clean. The sky is brilliant blue, and it's autumn, my favorite season. All of the mountains are vibrantly colored with bright reds, burning oranges, and deep greens. I've never seen anything like it. "Fall forward and come to me," a voice says. "Impossible," I reason. "I'm not able to fly." Then I'm brought back to my body. The fourth time, I'm right back on that cliff, taking in the scenery. I feel so at ease and relaxed. Nothing matters except for this vista. When I gaze down at the river, it's crystal clear. I can see enormous fish swimming around, and they appear to be staring at me. Birds fly by, nod, and glance at me. I saw deer feeding along the riverbank. A road comes down the mountain to my left and meets a steel arch bridge with wooden boards. A rusty flatbed truck rumbles down the hillside, gears banging and wooden boards rumbling. I'm following that truck when my attention is caught by a really bright white light blazing on the riverbed. I can't take my gaze away from that bright white light. "Fall forward and come to me," says the voice once more. I did it without thinking about the consequences. Suddenly, I'm in the air. I'm flying through the air like a bird, aiming for that brilliant light. I see thorn plants along the riverbank and assume they'll hurt, but I glide right over them. Then I see him, an almost incomprehensible sight, a personage dressed entirely in white, with long white hair, a long flowing beard, and a lovely white aura all about him. "J.L.O. Jr., come sit with me," he says. We're sitting on a beautiful stone wall, and he's speaking to me sternly at first, but with every word, I feel unconditional love. He goes through a life review first, pointing out mistakes I'd made and individuals I'd hurt, before moving on to the wonderful things I'd done. He then informed me that it was not my time to stay in heaven, that I had not accomplished my earthly mission, and that I would have to return, but with renewed knowledge and instruction. The talk continued with specific instructions. However, I was told that many of these instructions would be stored in my mind and would be released when the time was appropriate and I was ready to receive them. To keep the spirit close to me, I was to keep myself educated by reading, being vigilant, and living life. I would develop new hobbies and pursue previously unexplored ones. Always be on the lookout for persons who crossed my path because messages could be given in a variety of ways. Experience has shown that the first was correct. I'm suddenly back in my body. I'm in a recovery room and believe I had a strange dream. While I'm trying to make sense of it all, my doctor walks in and says, "I have good news and bad news. The good news is that you're alive. The terrible news is that you died 4 times and I didn't think we'd be able to bring you back. Your lower coronary artery was completely stopped. It's a marvel you survived the drive here." This started a repetition of all that had happened in what I thought was a dream. I knew without a doubt that I died and that I died 4 times as the doctor had claimed. He added that the last time I died, he didn't think I'd survive, but it was as if someone stepped up to him and shouted into his ear, "Keep working, we're sending him back." Life has surely changed since then. It wasn't an easy route, as I had to confront life obstacles that would have killed me if they hadn't opened that artery. God was aware of this, therefore he needed to remove it out of the way. I'd considered and nearly committed suicide a couple of times. God must have reasoned, "Okay, you want to be dead so you don't have to deal with life, so I let you experience death and we'll talk about a few things." I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains of southern West Virginia, And I know God took me to that magnificent heavenly river setting so I would be comfortable and receptive to the message. I now have a purpose, a mission, and a God-given task to complete. It entails spreading love and assisting people in feeling good about themselves. While numerous revelations have flowed from my head, there are yet many more to come. I'm certain of this and live my life accordingly. I've learned not to dread death, but rather to embrace it.